Should the Texans sign Chris Jones? You're watching another edition of Sign or Decline with Landry Locker and Cody Stoots. Landry of the Locker Room, Cody Stoots of the Cody Stoots channel on YouTube and Houston Football. We've been talking offense a little bit. Now it's time to go on the defensive side of the ball. Perhaps arguably one of the five, or definitely one of the five best defensive players in the league, perhaps the best in the league when he cranks it up a notch and when he flips that switch. Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. Should the Texans sign Chris Jones? Let's get into that right now, Cody.
Man, there is just so few opportunities for a guy like this to actually hit free agency. And I've been looking at the numbers and kind of thinking about, hey, is he going to hit true free agency or the Chiefs maybe going to use a franchise tag on him? I don't know if the Chiefs have the money or the capital to use the franchise tag on Jones. So a guy like this hitting true free agency
is also got kind of pissed when they did it before. It's kind of a big deal.
So they have he has an incredible opportunity to hit free agency. As you talked about, one of the best defensive players in all of football. These guys don't hit free agency. So when they do, anybody and everybody should do their homework, check in and see if it can fit. And when you think about the Houston Texans and you think about the offensive line, I can't get DeMeco Ryans' final comment from the press conference that he had after the loss in the playoffs of the defensive line is where it starts for me. I just can't get that out of my mind when we think about Chris Jones or free agency or the draft in general, anything this offseason. And it just, from a timing perspective and how it would work, and yeah, it's expensive, but nice things are expensive. You saw what happens when you invest in nice things in the draft. It works out really well for you. I like the opportunity for Chris Jones, and I like the opportunity for the Texans here with Chris Jones hitting free agency.
Right now, the projected salary in years from Spot Rec is 3 years, 85. So you're talking 3 years, 85 million. I don't know. It could be higher, could be lower. I don't know. But let's just, for the sake of this discussion, no disrespect to any of the other projectors, but we're gonna play ball here. Like Spot Rec is right, which they aren't right all the time, so they're wrong often. But let's play with the 3 years, 85 million for the sake of this discussion. When I look at that, I look at the fact that Will Anderson for the next 3 years is going to be on his rookie deal. So where you normally would invest heavily on the edge, you have Will Anderson on his rookie deal. You also have perhaps what's going to cost you the most, the quarterback CJ Stroud on his rookie deal as well. So you can maybe splurge for Chris Jones, who is 30 years old, but let's just make no mistake about it. Without Chris Jones, the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl, and hell, they might not even win the one before that. So if you add Chris Jones to this mix, is he someone that puts you over the top? I don't know that the Texans are like knocking on the door, like examples in the past where guys have brought in defensive players. I'll go all the way back to Reggie White from Philadelphia to Green Bay, put him over the top. Charles Haley from San Francisco to Dallas, put him over the top. And in both of those examples, you're taking from your competition and adding to your squad. DeMarcus Ware went from Dallas to Denver. That was a release situation. He was kind of on the back end and perhaps not in his prime. But the Texans were definitely knocking on the door this year. Are they knocking on the door so much to where if they get one of the five best players in football, if they get him and they add him to this mix, and you assume that Will Anderson's going to continue to grow, you assume that you're still going to have other assets to invest, and you know that you have these guys on their rookie deals, I think a strong case can be made for Chris Jones. And, oh, by the way, it's not just two jamokes who cover the Texans and who host channels saying this. Right now in Las Vegas, the Texans are the number 2 betting favorite to land Chris Jones. They're actually the number 1 betting favorite to land Mike Evans. So they seem to assume that the Texans are going to make some sort of splash. At some point, it makes sense with all these rookie contracts that you have in line and with what you just said that DeMeco Ryans had said.
You brought up one of the interesting aspects about investing in Chris Jones. It's what are you already invested in from a big standpoint on this team? Well, it's not quarterback and it's not edge rusher, which is typically the two most expensive things that a team can invest in when it comes to either the quarterback position or getting after the quarterback. Left tackle, you're already invested there. You know who the highest paid defensive player on this team is right now as we talk? Malik Collins. So it might be time to dump a little cash Yeah, and it might be time to dump a little cash over onto the defensive side. So if Chris Jones is going to be the third most expensive defensive player in football behind only Bosa and Aaron Donald, so be it. Sign him, pay him a bunch of money, and then have an absolute game changer in the middle of this defensive line. You know, he has more sacks in the regular season than Aaron Donald in the past 4 seasons. And when you factor in the playoffs, he's only half a sack behind Aaron Donald. Amongst all defensive players, he has the 6th most sacks over the past 4 seasons. And that's just sacks. You saw in the Super Bowl, he doesn't have to get a sack to affect and change the game. This guy is a bona fide stud, and you never get the shot at these guys. And to have the shot at him, I'm very much in on this.
The case for Chris Jones, I think you kind of just laid it out. We piggyback off of it. I think it's very simple. He's one of the best players in football. It comes from an area that your coach says that you need. In the positions where you typically invest the most, you're probably going to have to pay Stingley after this year, but Will Anderson still got a few years left on his deal. CJ Stroud's got a few years left on his rookie deal. You've already committed to your tackles, which is other expensive areas. So you have money to play with. And I mean, if you're knocking on the door, these are the types of moves that put you over the edge. And you still have draft picks and you still have a lot of money to mess with. It's hard for me to make a case against this. I don't know what they feel that they should or shouldn't do. I could see them being heavy hitters in free agency. And the other thing about the Chris Jones, Mike Evans thing, and I'm sure this will come up in the case against, is while on one hand you say, you know, these guys are pushing, you know, they're in their 30s and they could potentially be in the back end. Neither one of them have shown signs of slowing down. And in a crazy way, that kind of helps you, because if they were 25, 26 years old, I mean, we're not talking about these 3 to 4 year deals, so like the shorter term deals. So it almost, like, in a strange way, it all kind of benefits you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Bosa signed a 5-year deal. Myles Garrett signed a 5-year deal. Aaron Donald, because he was 31, signed a 3-year deal. So if you're thinking about a 3-year deal for a 30-year-old defensive tackle, like, you can still pay a lot of money. And you mentioned the money. Just because you signed Chris Jones and the way that you can manipulate these contracts and play around with them and the salary cap jumping over the next couple of seasons, you could still go out there and do some of the things that you need to do in free agency. And you mentioned the full complement of draft picks. They can still fill holes that way. Plus, look at this team last year and over the past couple of years. Nick Caserio's done a pretty decent job of identifying bargain players that don't break the bank. I mean, I think about George Fant, who ended up playing right tackle for most of the year. He was a bargain player. So even if you do commit a lot of money to one guy and you need to go find a couple of bargains here or there, Caserio's done a pretty decent job of finding those bargain players. So bargain players plus draft picks, plus you still have money to spend in free agency. You can do everything that you need to do with your free agency class if you sign Chris Jones.
The other thing about it, and I don't know what Chris Jones is thinking, but a lot of times I assume that these guys want to be in the best football situation, even if they are on the market. I mean, sometimes you don't even have a shot. Like if the Texans, with a lot of salary cap space last year, unless they just presented something ungodly amount, you really don't even have a shot at these guys. But now I think you legit do. So I think the case for is very strong.
And what does Kansas City do? I mean, they lose this guy. What do they do? I mean,
yes, you're bringing them down to you too.
Exactly.
And maybe that happens naturally. Who knows? But I think if he hits the market, you got to at least make the call. Las Vegas agrees. Case against, for me, I guess we can go back to age. Age would be a thing. I don't have a lot of cases against. Again, we're playing with the 3-year, $85 million that I previously mentioned. If that's the deal, the case against for me, you're not going to get too much pushback from me.
I mean, the standard for this position and this type of guy is Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald's been a Pro Bowler all 3 years. He's been in his 30s, 30, 31, and 32. He was a Pro Bowler the past 3 seasons. He was an All-Pro 2 of those 3 seasons. He was almost the Defensive Player of the Year when he turned 30. So the expectations are high. I suppose if you were looking, and it's not an injury factor thing either. Chris Jones basically plays every game. I mean, he's missed a game here or there, but he basically plays every game. I guess you could point to, hey, he's played a lot of extra football that other guys haven't played when it comes to the fact that he's almost played a season's worth of football in the playoffs. So really he's one season ahead of a couple of other guys, but you're really grasping at straws there. The argument I'd listen to is if you truly feel like there are so many holes that need to get plugged by big time investments that, hey, I don't want to make an A investment in one spot because I need to make B level investments in 3 or 4 spots. If you want to make that argument, I'll certainly listen to it. Starter opposite Stingley, linebacker, defensive end, not defensive tackle. Yeah. Like if you want to make that argument, I'll listen to it. But I guess, again, grasping at straws, look, the guys at the parade saying, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. But guys have been money whipped before. Everybody's got a price, as the $1 Million Man would always tell you. And I just wonder if maybe you don't get as much out of that guy because it's not the Kansas City Chiefs around him. But then I think about DeMeco Ryans being his coach. I'm like, he'd be ready to go every Sunday. So the negatives is really split the pie. I need B investments everywhere instead of one A investment.
For me, the verdict is if you have the opportunity at that price, I think you do it. Again, who knows if he reaches the market, maybe he stays in Kansas City. But the verdict for me at 385, the spot rack, which is again what we use on this, I would say yes, thumbs up to Chris Jones.
I'll go sign as well. And if he's got to be the 3rd highest paid defensive player in football for you to sign him, go ahead and make him the 3rd highest paid defensive player in football to sign him. Guys like this do not come available very often. And to have that guy and then maybe have Will Anderson evolve into a level that's close to that guy, think about the havoc you'd be causing. I'm big time in on Chris Jones. Give me the sign.
All right, there you go. So that's the verdict. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central, Sports Radio 610, and the Odyssey app. You can see me on YouTube on the Sports Radio 610 page, as well as right here in the locker room. You can read Cody Stoots at Houston Football. You can go to his YouTube channel as well. We'll be doing this throughout the year through free agency, sign or decline each day. And we'll also, once the draft comes around, draft or pass is where we'll be there. Appreciate you for coming through, Stoots. We don't agree all the time, but I think we agree on this. If you get the opportunity, you might as well jump on it.
Our first sign of this little exercise. Sign Chris Jones.
There you go. All right. Appreciate you, Stoots.
Anytime.